That answers the lie. My name can stop the men, but only if you choose it.
Stop counting. Zeke Bishop opened his fist over Elias Ingram's scarred oak table, and enough gold to ruin a quiet man's winter spilled between Helena and the door. Her father's riders would reach the winery by sundown, carrying a theft charge and orders to take her 8-month-old daughter. Zeke watched the coin settle. That answers the lie. My name can stop the men, but only if you choose it. Helena drew Rose closer against her chest. The baby had gone still, as if even she understood that the room had changed. Old Elias sat between them with both hands around a dented tin cup. He owned the vineyard, kept the township records, and served as justice of the peace when the county judge was 3 days away. Late sunlight cut through the counting room window and flashed across the coins. Helena looked past the gold to Zeke's right hand. A few minutes earlier, when Elias had read Arthur Hargrove's accusation aloud, that hand had closed so hard, the knuckles blanched. It was open now, but she remembered the fist. Her father had called anger discipline. Her late husband had called control protection. Men always found clean names for the things that left a woman afraid. "If I take your name," she asked. "What do you expect to take in return?" Zeke did not step closer. He moved his hand away from his gun belt and let it hang where she could see it. "Nothing you don't offer." Rose suddenly leaned out of Helena's arms and snatched a coin from the table. Her tiny fingers closed around it with astonishing purpose. Elias drank from his cup. "Youngest person here is the only one who trusts the bargain." Helena pried the coin loose and returned it to the pile. Zeke did not laugh at her caution or reach for the child. He simply waited with the particular stillness of a man accustomed to holding frightened horses without making them more afraid. No touch, no command, no kindness that arrived already carrying a debt. "I need to know where you want me," he said. "In front of the door when they come. Beside you before a magistrate. Or nowhere near you. You tell me." Helena's heart beat hard enough to make her ribs ache. "My own room. My wages stay mine. Rose is mine to raise. When harvest ends, I may leave, and you will not follow." "Agreed. And you will never use this marriage to speak over me." His jaw tightened, not in anger, but in attention. "Then stop me the first time I try." Elias set down his cup. "A marriage will not erase a complaint. It gives you a household beyond your father's reach and a witness who can force the matter into daylight. That is all." "Time," Helena said. "It gives me time." Elias opened the register. Zeke signed first his name dark and plain. Helena held the pen above the page. Her father's men were coming. Marcus Calhoun had promised to marry her whether she agreed or not. Rose stirred against her warm and trusting. Helena wrote her name with a hand that did not shake. Elias spoke the brief words required by law. There was no ring, no kiss, no blessing beyond the old man's rough. "May you both prove wiser than this day requires." When they stepped outside, Zeke's freight wagon waited by the winery wall. He steadied the horses while Helena climbed up by herself. Only after she had settled Rose did he take the far end of the bench, leaving 2 feet of sun-warmed wood between them. The riders appeared on the southern road before the wagon reached the first bend. Zeke did not whip the team. He merely gathered the reins and drove with the unhurried confidence of a man who knew every rut between the vineyard and his ranch. Helena kept her eyes ahead. No one called after them. The Bishop place stood against the lower hills, a square cabin, a broad barn, a well, and fields dry enough to show every hoof print. It was modest, orderly, and quiet. Zeke stopped near the porch. From his pocket, he took an iron key and laid it on the bench between them. "Back door," he said. "Locks from the inside." "Where will you sleep, tack room?" "That is not a bed. It It has hay and fewer opinions than most beds. Rose reached for his hat string and pulled the brim over his eyes. Zeke froze. He did not grab her wrist. He sat in blind dignity until Helena freed the small fist. "My apologies," Helena murmured. She has a firm view of men in hats. The corner of Helena's mouth moved before she could stop it. That night, she locked the back door. She placed a chair beneath the latch anyway, then sat on the bed and listened. Crickets. A horse shifting in the barn. Once the low scrape of Zeke's boots crossing the yard, followed by the barn door closing. No hand tested the latch. No voice demanded gratitude. Safety felt less like peace than a room in which nothing happened. In the morning, the leather pouch sat in the center of the kitchen table. Beneath it lay a note written in blunt pencil. "Not the price of anyone. Use it if you need to go." Helena read it twice. Zeke had poured out years of savings to answer her father's lie, then left the money where she could take it and disappear. She carried the pouch outside. He was harnessing a gray draft horse to a flatbed wagon. He glanced at the gold, then returned to the buckle in his hands. "I will not hide in your cabin," Helena said. "Elias has blight on the west slope. I can graft healthy rootstock and save part of the yield." Zeke pulled the strap snug. "Can you do it before the crush?" "Yes." "Then get your gloves." He did not tell her the work was too hard. He did not announce that a husband would provide. He simply drove her back to the vineyard and stopped at the first row of yellowing vines. The crew watched from farther downhill. Zeke faced them. "This is Helena Bishop," he said. "She knows rootstock better than anyone on this slope. She marks the rows. You follow her marks." Helena felt every pair of eyes turn toward her. She had asked for work, not a favor, and he had given her authority without pretending it came from him. Before she could inspect the first leaf, a polished black buggy rolled to the edge of the rows. Marcus Calhoun stepped down in a pale coat untouched by dust. He had money in freight warehouses and mining shares. He also had the smile of a man who mistook patience for ownership. A sealed letter rested in his gloved hand. "Bishop," he called. "You have chosen expensive company." Zeke said nothing. Marcus held out the letter. "Her father swears she stole harvest funds. Harbor her, and you harbor a thief. My northern freight route will not employ either." Zeke's jaw set. The northern route was winter work. Without it, the Bishop barn would have more empty stalls than full ones by January. He looked at Helena instead of the letter. "Burn it, keep it, or send it back." The question struck harder than Marcus's threat. Her father and her late husband had always discussed her as if she were absent from her own life. Zeke stood to lose his income, yet he waited for her word. "Keep it," she said. "A lie is easier to fight when it has a signature." Zeke took the letter and slipped it into his vest. Marcus's smile thinned. "You have lost the northern line. I heard you. You will regret choosing her." This time Zeke's temper showed. He stepped down from the wagon, one boot striking dust, and Marcus's driver shifted uneasily. "She chose the work," Zeke said. "I chose not to haul for a man who threatens women. Those are two different choices. Learn the difference before you come back." For a moment, Helena thought Marcus might answer with force. Then he looked at the vineyard crew, climbed into his buggy, and drove away. Zeke watched until the wheels cleared the rows. When he turned back, the anger was still in his face, hot and controlled. "Did I speak over you? No. Did I say too much? Not nearly enough for my taste." His eyebrows lifted. Helena bent over the nearest vine before he could see that she was almost smiling. The next day settled into hard labor. Helena marked diseased trunks with strips of faded cloth, cut away rot, and taught the crew where to bind the new grafts. Rose slept beneath the wagon in a basket lined with quilts. When she woke, Helena carried her on one hip until the work demanded both hands. On the second morning, Helena brought her mother's grafting ledger to the west slope. The old book held weather marks, rootstock notes, and the patient record of every vine her mother had ever saved. A thick folded sheet rested between two pages near the back, marked in familiar handwriting, Upper Ridge Keep. Helena nearly opened it, but Rose began crying, and a worker called from the diseased row. She tucked the paper back where it had waited for years and turned to the living vines in front of her. Zeke's freight runs past the west slope twice a day. He never ordered Helena to rest. Water simply appeared at the end of her row. A square of canvas appeared over Rose's basket when the sun shifted. Once Helena found the pruning blade sharpened and oiled. She began to understand the cost of his restraint. Every time he wanted to help, he made himself ask whether the help belonged to him. On the fifth afternoon, Elias's old mule planted all four hooves and refused to pull a cart of cut vines. Zeke tugged the lead rope, spoke in a low voice, then a lower one, and finally stared at the animal, as though betrayed by a close friend. Helena took the rope from him. She made a soft clicking sound. The mule walked at once. Zeke watched it follow her down the row. "I have hauled 6-horse teams over Donner Pass," he said. "Yet every female on this hill has decided I am unqualified." Helena laughed. The sound escaped before she could guard it. Bright and brief, it carried through the dry vines. Zeke looked at her a heartbeat too long, and then turned to the mule with stern concentration. The laugh vanished from Helena's throat. Warmth had always come with a price. A compliment became permission. A gift became ownership. A moment of ease became evidence that she owed more. Zeke held out his hands. "Let me take Rose for 10 minutes. You need both hands for the next graft." Helena tightened her hold on the sleeping child. He pulled off his work gloves and tucked them into his belt. His palms stayed open. 10 minutes. You can stand close enough to hear her breathe." She studied his face, then slowly transferred Rose into his arms. He received the baby as if she were more breakable than glass and more important than gold. Rose sighed against his chest. Her head, Helena warned, "I have it. Do not bounce her, I will not. And if she wakes, I will bring her straight back." Helena turned to the vine. Her hands shook for the first cut. Then they steadied. 10 minutes became 15. When she looked again, Zeke sat in the shade with Rose asleep beneath his chin. He had not moved so much as a finger. Something tender and dangerous pressed beneath Helena's ribs. By the end of the week, Zeke had shifted his freight work to moonlit hours. He returned at dawn with dust in his beard, slept 2 hours in the tack room, and then came to the vineyard wearing a canvas sling an older driver had taught him to tie. He never called it sacrifice. That made it harder to dismiss. One morning, Rose woke crying while Helena worked deep in a row. Zeke paced with her changed shoulders, checked the blanket, and looked increasingly offended by his own helplessness. At last he called Helena. "I have exhausted every skill that works on horses." She came out wiping soil from her hands. "Tell me what she needs," he said, "or take her before I ruin her opinion of me forever. She likes circles on her back, not pats." He placed one broad hand between Rose's shoulders and rubbed slowly. The crying broke into little breaths, then stopped. Zeke exhaled. That is an unreasonable amount of power for one small person. She knows it. Their eyes met. This time, Helena let the smile remain. She showed him a row of clean grafts. "The lower yield will hold. Elias will have wine to sell. I knew you would save it. You lost the northern line because of me." "No." His answer came hard enough to stop her. "Marcus took the line because I would not bend. Do not carry my choice as another man's debt." Helena looked at the circles his hand still made against Rose's back. He did not understand that one sentence could be more intimate than a kiss. Or perhaps he understood and had chosen to say it anyway. 2 nights later, Elias rode to the Bishop Ranch after supper. He sat at the kitchen table with his hat between his hands. "The autumn auction is Saturday," he said. "Marcus has filed a complaint with the county sheriff. He means to call the marriage a sham claim the wine was made with stolen funds and have the sale money held until a hearing." Helena's stomach tightened. Elias continued, "Your work records are sound. So are the crew's receipts. But Arthur intends to stand there and call you a thief in front of every buyer in the valley. Then he will have to do it to my face." Elias nodded once. "That is what I hoped you would say." After he left, Helena paced the cabin. Rose slept in a crate lined with blankets near the stove. The accusation could fail and still ruin the auction. Buyers disliked disputes. Zeke could lose what remained of his work. Elias could lose the harvest. Her father could ask the court for Rose and call Helena unstable, disobedient, unfit. Zeke listened without interrupting. Then he went outside. Through the window, Helena saw him lead out a horse and hitch the small supply wagon. He loaded flour-dried beans, blankets, a water keg, and the pouch of gold. Her fear turned instantly to fury. She crossed the yard as he placed the pouch beneath the wagon seat. "You are sending me away. I am giving you a road, without asking whether I want it. The North Pass is clear. Marcus will watch the station and the South Road. You can reach Sacramento before anyone knows. You lose your contracts, empty your savings, and pack my wagon in the dark." Her voice rose. "You keep deciding how I should be saved." Zeke's restraint broke. "I am trying to keep you alive and keep that child out of Hargrove's house. I do not want safety that makes me disappear." Helena stepped closer, shaking now and too angry to hide it. "I saved those vines. I want to stand beside the barrels and sell the wine. I want my father to hear me say no. But I cannot build a life while you keep preparing my escape from it." Zeke stared at her. His breath came hard. For once there was no careful answer waiting behind his teeth. "I know how to stand in front of a gun," he said at last. "I know how to take a blow. I do not know how to ask someone to stay." The words stripped the anger from her. He looked toward the cabin where Rose slept. "Every time I come back from a run, I look for the lamp in that window. Every time you laugh, I spend the next hour wanting to hear it again. That is not part of the bargain, Helena. I know it is not. So I keep a wagon ready because wanting you here does not give me the right to close the road." Helena had expected him to defend his plan. She had not expected the truth. He set the wagon key on a barrel between them and stepped away. "The road is yours," he said. "So is the staying." Helena picked up the key. She unharnessed the horse herself, carried the provisions back to the pantry, and left the wagon in the yard. When she passed Zeke on the way inside, she placed the key in his palm. "I am staying through the auction." His fingers closed around the iron. Through the auction. Neither of them pretended the words meant only Saturday. The following afternoon, 3 riders came up the Bishop Road. Helena was on the porch, wiping mashed pear from Rose's chin. Marcus rode in front. Arthur Hargrove rode beside him in a dark tailored coat, looking as though dust itself had offended him. Her body remembered him before her mind did. Her shoulders tightened. The cloth slipped from her hand. Zeke was at the trough. He set down the bucket and walked between the riders and the porch. "Move, Bishop." Zeke did not. Arthur looked past him. "You have embarrassed yourself long enough, Helena. Pack the child. You are returning home." Home. The word still carried locked rooms, measured meals, and a father who could turn silence into punishment. Arthur started toward the steps. Zeke's right hand curled. Helena saw the fist and went cold. He saw her flinch. The change in him was immediate. He opened his hand, moved it away from the Colt at his hip, and set one foot back so his body blocked the path without threatening a draw. Then he looked over his shoulder. "Do you want him in your house?" Helena rose. Rose rested against her shoulder, warm and solid. "No." Arthur's face darkened. "You do not understand what is best for you. I understand it now. You are not welcome here." He surged forward and struck Zeke across the mouth. The blow snapped Zeke's head to the side. Helena cried out. Zeke's hand twitched once near his belt, then fell open again. A thin line of blood marked his lip. He faced Arthur. She said no. Marcus laughed from the saddle. "You will have no work left by winter." Zeke's eyes never left Arthur. "Then I will be poor on my own land." Arthur pointed at Helena. "Tomorrow I will prove you a thief and take my granddaughter." Helena stepped to the edge of the porch. "Tomorrow you will say it where everyone can hear you lie." For the first time, uncertainty crossed her father's face. He mounted, and the three men rode away. Zeke waited until they passed the hill before going to the trough. Helena carried a clean cloth down the steps. "You could have stopped him." "Yes. You let him strike you. If I struck first, he would make the whole matter about two angry men." Zeke bent so she could reach his mouth. "And you looked afraid of me." The admission hurt more than the bruise. "You were angry. I am still angry. But you listened. I am trying to learn the difference between holding a line and taking over the ground." Helena pressed the cloth to his split lip. He stood motionless beneath her hand. "You held the line," she whispered. Inside the cabin, she brought out her mother's leather-bound grafting ledger and laid it on the table. No one had touched it since her mother died. The pages held years of rootstock notes, weather marks, yield numbers, and small corrections written in the margin. "Sit down, Zeke." He removed his hat. Helena opened to a blank page near the back. "These are the vines for spring. I want a nursery plot between the cabin and the lower fence. We can clear it after the auction. If you still want me standing beside you." Helena slid the ledger across the table. "I do." For an hour they planned rows and water channels, while Rose played on a quilt at their feet. She knocked over a wooden cup, crawled toward Zeke, and seized his mustache with both fists. He shut his eyes. Helena laughed. "A second defeat in 1 week. I did not know this household required combat pay. She releases for bread, extortion at 8 months. He offered Rose a crust. She released him at once." The folded sheet marked Upper Ridge Keep rested near the back of the ledger. Helena touched its worn edge, remembering the vineyard morning when she had nearly opened it. "Tomorrow," she murmured. Zeke glanced at the paper, but did not ask. He had learned that waiting could be another way of standing beside her. "Zeke." He looked up. "Tomorrow, I do not want a guard behind me." His face went still. "I want my husband beside me," she said. "Not because the name shields me. Because you ask before you stand." He turned his hand palm up on the table. Helena placed hers in it. The winery yard filled before sunrise. Merchants, growers, teamsters, and neighbors crowded around 20 oak barrels from the rescued west slope. Elias stood on a crate with his cane. Marcus waited near the sheriff's deputy, and Arthur stood beside him with the satisfaction of a man who believed public shame was already victory. Zeke's wagon stopped at the edge of the crowd. He stepped down and offered Helena his hand. This time she took it because she wanted to, not because she needed help reaching the ground. Elias raised his voice. "Before bidding, begins Arthur Hargrove disputes the ownership of this wine. Marcus moved forward. The woman calling herself Helena Bishop fled with harvest money. Her marriage is a convenience. These barrels belong to the Hargrove estate. The crowd turned toward her. Helena felt the old instinct to make herself small. Then Rose tugged the ribbon at her collar, and Zeke's open hand remained beside hers without closing around it. Helena stepped ahead of him. Marcus Calhoun is lying. The yard fell silent. She lifted the ledger. I did not steal the harvest. I saved it. The west slope was failing. I selected the cuttings, marked the diseased vines, directed the grafts, and paid the crew from money freely advanced against the sale. She faced the foreman. John Mercer, who directed the west slope, you did, Mrs. Bishop, who paid the men you and Mr. Ingram from Bishop's stake. Arthur barked money she took from me. Zeke stepped beside Helena, shoulder to shoulder. The money was mine, he said. Freight wages earned over 12 years. I staked the crop because she knew how to save it. I did not buy her work, and I do not own it. Then he stopped speaking. He did not give the crowd a speech about Helena's courage. He did not explain her life for her. He had cleared the space. The rest belonged to her. Helena turned to the buyers. Taste the wine. Judge the work. If any man here believes my father owns the labor in my hands, keep your money. Elias drew the first sample. A merchant tasted it, then named a price. Another raised him. Within minutes, the yard rang with bids. The dispute did not vanish, but profit made cowards practical. Every barrel sold. The total covered the crew repaid Zeke's stake, carried Elias through winter, and left enough to plant Helena's nursery in spring. The deputy did not seize the proceeds. Too many witnesses had heard the truth, and the receipts were plain. Arthur pushed through the crowd toward Helena. You think a sale makes you free? No, she said. Choosing made me free. The sale merely paid well. A few people laughed. Arthur's face hardened. You chose a man with nothing. Helena glanced at Zeke. Dust on his boots, a bruise darkening his jaw. Rose's ribbon tied badly around one finger where the baby had put it that morning. I chose a man who leaves the road open. Arthur had no answer to that. He walked away with Marcus at his shoulder. When the yard emptied, Zeke and Helena stood near the wagon, while Elias counted receipts inside. The harvest is finished, Zeke said. Your father's complaint will not hold after today. You do not need my name for protection. Helena studied him. He was giving the choice back again, though it cost him enough that she could hear the strain in his voice. I know. She took the iron key from her apron pocket and the key to the wagon he had prepared for her and placed it in his hand. Keep the wagon ready, she said. Pain flashed across his face before she added, we will need it to haul nursery posts. His breath left him in a rough laugh. Helena threaded her fingers through his. I do not want the name as a shield, Zeke. I want the life we have begun under it. He lifted her hand, stopped before touching it to his lips, and waited. Helena closed the last inch herself. A week later, Elias came to the ranch with the final payment. Helena set the money aside and opened her mother's ledger to the folded sheet she had carried through the harvest. The survey was older than Marcus's claim, and her mother's notes were brief spring access wagon cut upper boundary stake. Marcus's sealed letter supplied the rest. He had not wanted the vineyard. He had wanted the only reliable road and water leading to his dry ridge, and he had expected marriage to Helena to place both within reach. Helena made 2 copies. Elias carried one to the county recorder and one to the neighboring claim holder. The original returned to the ledger. That was all the paper deserved. By the next month, Marcus was defending his own boundary marks instead of pursuing hers, and Arthur's complaint disappeared. Their retreat did not free Helena. She had already done that in the winery yard. The survey merely kept them from trying the same chain again. That afternoon, Helena went outside. The nursery plot had been cleared between the cabin and lower fence. Zeke was brushing down the gray horse after a timber run. He looked tired, dusted with road grit, and entirely at home. She carried a single healthy vine cutting. He set down the brush. "Is that the first one?" "The first that belongs here." Zeke removed his hat. The old reserve came over him, but Helena knew it now. It was not coldness. It was a man holding his hope carefully, so she would never mistake it for a demand. "I gave you the name Bishop to carry you through one night," he said. "But I want to hear Helena in my house through every season I have left." He paused. "I am still asking." Helena placed the cutting in his open hand. "And I am answering." She took his other hand and drew him toward the soft earth. Together they knelt, set the roots, and pressed the soil firm around them. Rose sat on a quilt nearby, beating a wooden spoon against a tin pan with great authority. Zeke looked toward the child. "She believes we are behind in the work. She has always had strong opinions about your work." He smiled, then looked back at Helena. "Will you stay when the vines bear?" Helena touched the bruise fading along his jaw, then rested her palm against his cheek. "I will stay when they fail," she said. "I will stay when they bear. I will stay because I can leave, and because I choose not to." Zeke bent toward her slowly enough to leave room for refusal. Helena kissed him. It was not payment, rescue, or surrender. It was the first promise in her life that belonged equally to both people making it. Behind them, Rose struck the pan again. Zeke drew back. "Do you suppose that was approval? No. She wants the next cutting planted." He rose and offered Helena his hand. This time she took it before he could ask. A name had shielded her for one dangerous night. Choice made it a home.